Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming. I think everyone can hear my voice. If not, just type something up. If not, wave your hands, but I think it should be fine. Welcome to this one of the last lectures, I guess. We have one more to go, I believe. Or not really the last lecture of Online Black University. This is the second lecture from Turkey. My name is Balkan Devlen. I'm an associate professor Izmir in Izmir University of Economics at the Department of Political Science and International Relations. And today, I'd like to mainly talk about energy security in the Black Sea region. Now, it's a very broad subject, and one cannot really cover all of it or most of it, for that matter. Um, in such a short notice. So naturally, I would need to make my comments relatively limited, and I would like to do more time for questions and answers. Um, the I and of course I'm not going to really go on about talking too much about sort of the history of the energy projects, or I'm not going to get into the details of the technical aspects of it. I'm not very familiar with them as myself anyway, but I'm a political scientist, so my focus will be more on the political aspects of energy security and the recent developments, what the stage actually looks like right now. And the basic storyline, if you end up, getting bored with the lecture and decided to sort of move out and have some cup of coffee, the basic story I want to tell is that this game of energy in the Black Sea is a three-player game. It's a game of advantage in which the producers, the consumers, and the transit countries try to have over the others. And the bottom line for producers, and in this case, mainly we're talking about Russia, but also to a certain extent Azerbaijan, and further down the road to the Caspian littoral states, is to ensure their domination of the energy market, in order to cut out any possible competition and enjoy a monopoly or a quasi-monopoly over energy supplies, particularly gas supplies to Europe and then beyond if possible. The bottom line for consumers, mainly the European countries, that are heavily dependent on natural gas, Russian natural gas, particularly, is to find ways to decrease that dependence because that will not give them much leverage. So what they're looking for is um, supply diversification, supply security to ensure that they have enough from different sources so that they don't have to rely on supply. The transit countries like Turkey and Ukraine, were themselves also consumers, important consumers, but also act as major transit of Russian and later on with the possibility of Caspian natural gas to Europe, so east, is that ensure that they are the center of most of the transit, most of this um, energy flow, and then they benefit from it through preferential trade deals, discounted gas rates, and manage to be sort of the middleman that reaps the benefit of this game. Um, my focus on this lecture will be mostly, and then on the parts that I know a little bit better, that is the Turkish perspective on this whole energy game in the Black Sea, on this storyline, both as a consumer uh, country as well as a transit country. I would also deal with a bit on Russian position as the major producer and as a transit country as well. And again, because this is such a vast subject. I will not so much spend um, time on various alternatives, including the Eastern Mediterranean, and gas from the Eastern Mediterranean that is getting more and more getting into the realm of possibility for a good diversification, especially with the discovered reserves off the coast of Cyprus and Israel, as well as the support of Iran in terms of the international arena, international stage, as a good uh, standing as a citizen of international standing with the result of nuclear agreement. So there's a bunch of things that are the rise of China and increasing Chinese demand. So I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to get into the oil business as well. Oil is a lot more tangible market, unlike natural gas, which invites a natural monopoly given the structure of it, in the way you need to most of the time transport it via pipelines. Although LNG started to play a lot more role, particularly for diversification of resources for Europe. So what's sort of the deal right now? As I said, the basic story is the transport of resources in the east, natural gas to the Azeri natural gas and elsewhere to the major consumers in the west. This has been done for a long time after the Cold War, through various pipelines that Russia built, almost exclusive control or monopoly to the supply of natural gas to Europe. It used to be 70% of all overall European dependence on Russian gas in the 1990s, though decreased in time. Today, the average European dependence on Russian natural gas is over 30%, about 35% right now. Although some countries, especially the ones in the Baltics, Europe, and Central Europe, tend to almost 100%. You can, I'm pretty sure that you can open up. Okay, I'll turn that to me too much. That's quite hard for me. It's very hard for me to stand still and hope that I'll remember. What was I saying? Yes, you can open up any web page and look at a map of various pipelines. It will look like a maze. These lines going everywhere. What really unites them, though, is most of them are either originating in Russia or passed through Russian territory first before entering various points in. So Russia has almost a natural monopoly on this material. The second thing you will notice in that set of map is the proposed pipelines that goes through Turkey, either through Syria or through Greece and Europe, and that seems to be going to be mostly the focus right now. I want to pay attention to. For Turkey, the major, so what I want to start with is first talk about Turkish position with regards to security of the Black Sea and how they perceive, how Turkey perceives its role, how Turkey positions itself and wants to position itself. And then I want to talk about Russia, how Russian policies try to deal with Russian monopoly to this for this situation. And I will, of course, try to briefly mention several challenges that the energy supply and security role faces in the Black Sea region, particularly the issue related to geopolitical issues, the war in Ukraine, the frozen and also frozen conflicts in and around the Black Sea, and various technological challenges and the rise of other consumers such as China and through LNG, of the United States, becoming an increasingly important exporter, but also new fields discovered in this industry. So we let's start with Turkey. Now, Turkey itself sees itself both as an important transit country and a hub. The whole debate about what is an energy hub, what is a corridor, but at the same time, Turkey is important consumer of Russian gas. Turkish natural gas, is about 60% of what natural gas needs. Turkey is a net importer in terms of all sorts of energy. I'm sorry. Is it better? Can you hear me better? You missed. Okay. You need more sound. Can everyone hear me, or can you not hear me? I've been told. Everything fine? Okay. Moscow can hear. Okay. Now, I'll just try to talk this way then. Okay. Now, next Turkey. The Turkish position is that Turkey wants to be the center of all the major sort of gas projects that flow from east to west. So, Turkish policy, starting from the early 2000s, is to take part in every possible pipeline project and try to prevent bypassing Turkey or Turkish territorial waters. The second part of Turkish strategy is increasing realization that Turkey relies on Russian natural gas to a large extent, although that dependence has been decreased a little bit. It is still around 60% of its natural gas sources. So, on the one hand, Turkey wants to be an important transit route for Russian and for Azeri gas, and perhaps for the future for Turkmen and Uzbek natural gas. Turkey also takes steps in trying to negotiate and make deals with various other actors, including LNG terminals, with Iranians. Iranian gas is sort of the second important supplier of Russia to Turkey, to diversify that. Part of Turkish effort for diversification is also the intention to build 2 nuclear power plants, which one, by the way, in a paradoxical way, is to Russia. So you try to increase your dependence on Russian natural gas by having Russians build a nuclear power plant, which is not a very good way of diversifying your energy sources. But still, the first part is that Turkey tried to take part in every pipeline that would go through that would carry Caspian natural gas to Europe. The current one, there has been a lot of. There's a whole debate about Nabucco, which, as you know, is dead already, which then became a much more modest project, became Nabucco West, that links Bulgaria to until Austria, which is almost dead right now. The major project right now, which started, the building started, project is Anatolian pipeline TANAP that will initially bring Azeri natural gas from Shakhtins to gas fields, and in the future, hopefully, would bring other Caspian resources from Turkmen gas and beyond through Turkey to Europe. Nabucco West was one of the options to carry it to further west, but TANAP recently announced that they preferred, about a year ago, they preferred Trans-Adriatic pipeline that goes through Greece, Albania, and underneath to Italy. That's one line. There's also another. This is for the Caspian natural gas, but at the same time, Turkey had been a partner in South Stream, which is again a that project. Vladimir Putin, when he was visiting Turkey on December 1st in 2014, announced that Russia is withdrawing from South Stream. There's a whole lot of reasons for it, but the major reason is the geopolitical confrontation between Russia and the European Union. One part of the EU sanctions against Russia because of the war in Ukraine is delaying or not approving various contracts that related to South Stream, and thus the project is, at least for now, seems to be dead. Instead, this new project, which called the Turkish Stream right now, seems to be on the agenda. This is a way for Russia to bypass Ukraine and carry Russian natural gas directly to European partners. And here, of course, it is a continuation of the same strategy, which I'll talk later on, of Gazprom to bypass transit countries as much as possible and provide gas to European customers directly. One part of it is Nord Stream, which aims to provide natural gas directly to Germany, France, and Netherlands, and perhaps in the UK. The partner to this is was used to be the South Stream, which ends up being dead right now, and the whole talk is the Turkish Stream. Whether that's going to happen, whether this will be a part of it, is a whole different story. So one thing before I go on to realize or to notice is that a lot of these pipeline projects, Nabucco, for example, is all for years which didn't end up being built. Nabucco West has been dead, and it has been on for 5, 6, 7 years. South Stream has been around again for 7 years. That might end up happening. So a lot of these things are not only about technical feasibility, economic viability, but a lot to do with the political aspects of it. Because energy security fundamentally is a political issue. It is beyond just whether it is affordable, whether there is enough supply, who does provide that particular gas, that particular energy dependence inhibits your room for maneuver, your action. So whether this new pipeline took stream will happen or not, we shall see, and it has a lot to do with the relations between the EU and Russian Federation will get better anytime soon, or whether what seems to be a pretty good working relations with Russia and Turkey seems to get worse, or not, will continue sort of the same way. So to go back to Turkey's strategy, Turkey wants to see itself as a regional hub in the Black Sea and in the water Black Sea area, including the Caspian, for the carrying of gas to Europe, and it's a major consumer itself. So this way, all eagerness of Turkey to be the transit for every pipeline that might be built creates contradictions itself. One, of course, is wondering whether there are enough gas to go around with all these pipelines. Turkey has its needs, but most of these contracts include what is termed buy or pay. Basically, you pay if you use it, or you pay the amount that you agree to buy, the minimum amount, so on and so forth. So might end up being not very well if Turkish energy needs in the future are did not rise as is expected. The second part is at the same time while we're trying to be transit to both Caspian and Russian gas is Turkish own efforts to diversify its energy resources. A lot of these came into again met with political obstacles. There was this project that was suggested to be developed Israeli gas fields and they from those fields with a pipeline under the Mediterranean to Turkey. There is the talk of bringing the Iraqi Kurdistan's gas to Turkey. There is Turkey has problems throughout the years with the Iranian gas, and there is a whole problem of the overall Iraqi and Syrian natural gas to be transported. Turkey, as I said before, tried to build or commission nuclear power plants for to decrease its dependence, heavy dependence on natural gas for electricity production as well. So Turkish roles as a transit and consumer country may or may not always overlap with one another. A very brief look at Europe, the European Union. As I said, throughout the 90s and early 2000s, heavy dependence on Russian natural gas doesn't seem to be much of a problem for the European Union, but a series of difficulties and crises due to the relations between Ukraine and Russia create an impetus for European Union to look for alternatives to Russian gas, try not to be hostage to the the political rivalry between Russia and other Soviet countries, particularly the problems with Ukraine, which seems to be occurring from time to time. Second, all that natural gas sort of crisis, and of course, right now the situation in Ukraine, the war going on in eastern Ukraine, as well as the annexation of Crimea by Russia, created a significant geopolitical flashpoint, which increased the European Union's efforts to diversify its natural gas supplies. The idea was the Southern Corridor. The idea that there should be alternative supplies, not only pipelines that carry Russian gas, that bypass problematic transit countries like Ukraine, but also alternative supplies to Russian gas to decrease the dependence on Russian natural gas. And the South Stream, in that sense, the Southern Corridor include TANAP, Trans-Anatolian Pipeline, include Transadriatic pipeline that takes the gas from TANAP and carry it to Europe. And there is also the talk of LNG, further LNG supplies from North Africa as well as Nigeria, and developing the gas fields off the shore of Cyprus and Israel, and taking that to Europe. And right now, more and more talk with the Iranian nuclear program, or the sort of the seeming deal about the Iranian nuclear program of bringing Iranian gas to Europe. Whether that's going to happen or not is a long shot, but that seems to be sort of the deal. Of course, different countries will be affected differently within the European Union. Eastern European countries are still heavily dependent on Russian gas. If some of these Southern Corridor projects are realized, then there will be less reliance for some of the Balkan countries and South European countries, such as Italy and Greece, of less dependence on Russian gas. German dependence is decreasing over the years, but OStream sort of links Germany and Russia to one another. There's a whole debate about the shale gas and LNG imports from the US. So the field, in that sense, as you can see, is very complex, with multiple projects going on, and each three types of actors try to pull the things to ensure that their interests are best served. Consumers try to get the best price and maximum leverage on the producers. Producers try to get the maximum leverage on consumers by ensuring a monopoly access to those markets, and transit countries try to play off the producers and the consumers and try to be central to the whole thing. If you look at from the producer perspective, Russia is both a producer and a transit country. It's a producer of its own natural gas, but it's also a transit country for the Central Asian Caspian natural gas through Russia because of the existing pipelines. And there, what you see, the Gazprom's overall strategy in Europe with regards to Europe are the major approaches that they use to ensure its continuing dominance with these various threats. The Southern Corridor, increasing prominence of LNG coming from various sources, including North Africa, and in the future possibly from the United States. Gazprom end up using various tactics, various approaches to deal with that emerging threat. What they do, one thing I told you before, try to bypass transit countries such as Ukraine by building direct pipelines, the North Stream and the South Stream, which is now dead, the Turkish Stream, that would bypass at least some of the transit countries. By trying to vertically integrate itself to European electricity production systems in places like France, trying to buy stakes there, trying to be part of it, trying to make exclusive agreements with those electricity companies that they will use gas from Gazprom exclusively, trying to enforce and conclude new long-term contracts that links gas prices to oil, so oil-indexed gas prices, and basically what we call the take-and-pay principle. Most of the Gazprom's contracts expire around 2025, so there is about a 10-year still period in which Gazprom enjoys near monopoly. But once that period is over, unless Gazprom can lock in the consumers again to similar long-term contracts, there might be significant challenges in terms of raising revenue and the financial stability of the company itself. And of course, as a state company, as a state-owned company, Gazprom uses various policies of the Russian state to political pressure on various governments to block alternative supply routes to Europe, both in the former Soviet Union, as well as key transit countries such as Turkey, through its good relations and increasing sort of economic dependence on both countries. So what Gazprom does is what all monopoly companies do, is try to cut off competition, try to prevent alternative routes being built, either showing them that they are not economically viable, or through political pressure, or providing using monopoly position, providing more lucrative contracts and better discounts to consumers to lock that in, while the consumers at the same time to get better deals from the monopoly producer, trying to find ways to increase their leverage over the producers by opening up alternative routes. And Turkey, in this sense, sits at the center of all this because it will be crucial in terms of diversification through the Southern Corridor. It's itself an important consumer, so its relations with Russia is very important for Turkey, and it is a very important market for Russian natural gas. Apart I mean, Turkey is second only to European Union, and within, if you look at specific countries, in terms of their gas purchases, actually, it is only second to Germany itself. So it is a major issue now. Energy security has always been a part, or has always been a concern since this whole idea of Black Sea as a region sort of jumped out and talk. Mainly because it is, as I said, at the center of major energy resources, major energy producers in this region: Russia, the Caucasus, the Caspian States, the Middle East, and the Gulf, and major consumers of those energy resources. So it's only natural that when we think about Black Sea security, energy security, ensuring constant supply and reliable supply with reliable and reasonable prices seems to be one of the major concerns. But there are several challenges throughout years to this whole complex of energy security. One is various geopolitical concerns. The war in Ukraine is one of the major ones that is going on, but even before that, there is various frozen and not so frozen conflicts, including Transnistria, including the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh, including the breakaway regions in Georgia, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, so on and so forth, and the political instability in Central Asian states. So geopolitics and geopolitical configurations, possible conflicts and flashpoints are central concerns, and how to deal with that and try to minimize its impact on energy supply has always been one of the central purposes of the European Union. The EU always tried to sort of separate the energy from the politics as much as possible. But as we did see and just continue to see, that is not going to happen anytime soon. There's of course increasing threat from alternative suppliers. Iran might be returning to international arena as a good citizen if this nuclear deal ends up being realized. That might change the game. That might lead to the integration of Iran to this energy market and various pipelines taking Iranian natural gas to Europe. Iran, in that sense, has the second largest proven natural gas resources after Russia, so it will end up being a very major player. There is also technological developments that sort of threaten both the monopoly of producing both Russia, but in the future increasingly more active Azerbaijan. First and foremost, the increasing importance of LNG due to shale gas. Whether the initial hype about shale gas is true or not is a different story. There are technical difficulties, there are environmental problems with regards to shale gas. But what is becoming more and more obvious is that in the past several years, the technology advanced rapidly in terms of LNG, and the costs of that seems to be decreasing. So increasing LNG imports from various sources, not only from North Africa, which has its own problems, due to Libya being in the stage of civil war, but also from Nigeria, and increasing possibility of American natural gas through LNG imports has become an important source of alternative to Europe and its energy needs. And there is, of course, the idea of renewable resources, but I don't really see anytime soon renewable resources becoming very central to European energy needs. And nuclear seems to be out of favor, especially after the Fukushima disaster in Japan. So just to wrap up and sort of finalize what I would like to say, I think I talked a lot anyway. Um, the current concerns in the energy security of the Black Sea are complex. There is the tension between producers and consumers, and the transit countries try to play one against the other to ensure their own position. There are geopolitical uh, risks involved, and we see those risks being realized, and that might endanger continuous supply. And there is always alternative sources emerging, and alternative dynamics. Consumer, we talk about suppliers and Iran and LNG and so on and so forth, but there is always the sort of the 800-pound gorilla, as the Americans would say, that is China. Chinese are increasingly much more interested in transporting, already they're already transporting Central Asian gas, Turkmen and Uzbek gas, but they are increasingly involved in the Caspian, and they are a significant consumer as well. And Russia is turning towards China more and more in terms of a reliable consumer, and without having to deal with the Europeans in their sort of what Russia sees as a legalistic sort of approach in trying to separate politics from the economics of it. So there is the alternative consumer rising as well. So it is a very rapidly evolving area, and whatever I said today may mean nothing in 6 months. In the sense that South Stream has been the big deal in the past couple of years, and the crisis that started with the annexation of Crimea by Russia changed all that. Now the South Stream is dead, and the talk is Turkish Stream. And before that, the whole talk was Nabucco, and that didn't go anywhere. So a lot of this pipeline projects end up being pipe dreams as well, not being realized. So what doesn't really change is this tug of war between consumers, producers, and transit countries on one hand, trying to ensure a maximum flexibility for themselves and maximum benefit for themselves. And how can one move beyond this, what is generally seen as a zero-sum game, is a different story, and it is a political end. And I'll be happy to talk about that in the Q&A. So I am just going to turn the voices on right now. So if you have questions, I can hear you. Yep, I'm turning them on now, I think.
Thank you very much, Balkan. And as usually, we have the same procedure. So the moving hand from one of the universities, and then we have the questions. So now I see Moscow is being ready for the question. Bucharest is watching us on YouTube. They have a problem of joining. So in case they will have questions, they will send it via Facebook to us. And now I see the hand from Moscow. So I switched off.
Okay, you switch off yours and I can switch on theirs, okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, let me see. Is it on? Oh, that's not on. I can't see it. I can hear it and it's not on. Why it is not on? I know. I can see that, but you're not off. Let me turn you off, Anna.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, good. We have two questions from different students.
Sure.
Thank you for the lecture about energy issues in Black Sea region. My question would be that, as we know, I'm Aslan, a student here in the university from Moscow.
Okay.
As we know, the South Stream project got cancelled, and now the Turkish Stream project will be constructed. And this is profitable for Turkey and also advantageous for Russia. But what would you lecture us about the recent events in Macedonia happening, that example, the color revolution? So what does this imply for the security of this new Turkish pipeline, or is it be in jeopardy? Thank you.
question?
Let me take the other one, and then I'll reply to both.
Okay. Those who are coming, come closer to the mic.
Okay,
So from where?
we have another question from Moscow. Just another two in the rows, and then yeah.
I can hear that very clearly, so it's not a problem.
Good morning, I'm Sami from GIMO University of Moscow. And my question, first of all, thank you for your lecture. It was very interesting. And I would like to ask you about the Iranian agreement, that there could be in the next June. Do you think that after the agreement, the gas from Iran could arrive in Europe through Turkey? So could be for Turkey strategic interest the achievement of this agreement of Lausanne in June? Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the questions. Both of them are very interesting and very, very topical. I'll start with the questions with regards to the Balkans. The clashes in Macedonia recently between government forces and what the government labeled as insurgents and terrorists is a very complicated issue, I think, and we don't really know what is sort of the fundamental dynamic there. There is, as you said, a series of demonstrations that has been going on almost 2 weeks right now, I think, and furthermore, against the government, and the prime minister has been in power for almost 10 years right now, and there have been various allegations of corruption and recent sort of tapes that have been. This tape seems to be sort of the traditional thing in our region. We had that a couple of years ago as well in Turkey, about a possible cover-up of a demonstrator being killed by police, and the prime minister telling that and to cover that up and so forth. So the political situation is a bit complicated. It is complicated because we don't really know how much of that operation that carried out in Kumanova a week or two ago was what is generally called in the literature a diversion react. How much of it is a representative of a real threat of both possible Albanian secessionist movements, but with links to possible Islamist terrorism, because both are highly possible things. Now, what does that tell us about the security of the pipeline that is going through? Depends on where Turkish Stream would go. I mean, it might, if it goes through Greece and then through Albania, and then through, it sort of follows and just links up with Trans-Adriatic pipeline, it might not be a problem. If Turkish Stream instead decide to go through Greece and link up through Macedonia, Serbia, and to Eastern Europe, that might very well be a problem. Whether or no, I mean, Greece said that they are interested in taking part of it, but this Turkish Stream might just take the place of South Stream in that sense and link up with Nabucco West, what was the original Nabucco. So it could go actually Bulgaria and then through Serbia. And so we don't really know how it would go ahead. I wonder if it would go ahead. I have a suspicion that although this is very, very advantageous for Turkey, it's really consolidates Turkish position. I'm also suspicious that this must also be sort of a deep project. Might end up being cancelled later on if things get better between European Union and Russia. And South Stream might be revived. Because a lot of these countries were very keen on it. Bulgaria was very keen on it, but because of the EU regulations, they couldn't do that. So it might end up being revived eventually. So until we see real work being started on that pipeline project, I am not sure it's useful to speculate much on it. Though it is quite advantageous for Turkey in that sense. Makes Turkey a more important transit route to Europe of Russian gas. Of course, it has its negative side, which is it increases the Turkish dependence on Russian natural gas as well. For the second issue, Iran, and I think that's even a more interesting question in terms of what we do to the diversification efforts. If it happens, if the nuclear program or nuclear deal happens, within a few years, I am pretty sure that we will see projects being developed, perhaps linking Iranian gas to TANAP, to carry that. Whether TANAP would have the capacity for that is a different story. I think initially the capacity will be around 60 meters, but it could eventually be increased to 20. Whether that will be enough to carry Iranian gas as well, we don't know. The Shah Deniz 2 is not a field. There is limited. We would plan to purchase about one of what is going to go through TANAP itself anyway, so there might be some additional capacity there to link Iranian natural gas. Additional ones build upon, and that could provide Europeans with a very good diversification route and an alternative to Russian gas. And I think that is also a good enough incentive, if that seems to be happening, for Russia to block that if possible. And one way to do that is, of course, to ensure that the nuclear program is derailed, or the nuclear deal is derailed. And we shall see if there are more and more, and there are signs that, two sides are not talking about the same thing when they talk about a deal on the Iranian nuclear program. The Americans are saying something else, the Iranians are saying something else. And I wouldn't surprise too much if Russia is not too keen on having such a deal, because it would deprive Russia of an important leverage energy supplies to Europe, but overall an important leverage against the US as well as the EU with regards to Middle Eastern politics. It's a complicated issue, but if it happens, it will be an important alternative source within a few years, and I'm sure we will start talking about Persian Stream or whatever soon enough. And if someone comes up with that name for a pipeline, trademark is like. So, any questions? You're off. Let me turn you on.
Yes, no, we have Armenia.
Okay. I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I just listened. You were talking always about the pipelines, about the natural gas or oil and the politics. I would like to know what you think about the alternative energy sources, because nowadays it's already a lot of cars. They are working on hydrogen. So, and in Sweden, the United States, and in Japan, there are already a lot of alternative energy filling stations. So we have to think also about that.
Yeah.
And I see, and in Europe, it was written that until 2040, the energy demand will increase in 3 times, but also the alternative energy sources will increase like 30%. Still 30% they have to get from alternative energy sources, but it's also a huge amount. So the question is like, you have to think also about how to get alternative energy sources, not just with the pipelines to get the gas from one place to the other.
Yes. It just is a big echo there. Okay, now much better. The alternative energy resources in the long term probably be the biggest threat, but the thing that I don't foresee the timeline being overlapped too much. In the sense that Yes, alternative energy resources, renewable resources particularly, is gaining prominence. But they are not going to come online fast enough and to the quantities that are large enough to make a significant shift in the way that the European Union particularly produces its electricity and other needs. The Europeans hope to achieve that sort of energy efficiency by 2040, 2050. Whether they would actually get there is debatable. Partly because they sort of forgone the nuclear part. They have to rely on renewables, and renewables are the notorious thing about the renewables is that they are not always more economical. The costs tend to be higher, and especially at an age of cheap oil, which seems to be coming up again, the crash of the oil prices, which when you have oil-linked natural gas prices, may or may not make renewables economic. And even if you do end up having those, one of the things, for example, with things such as the wind energy, is that those things, when they're produced, they better be, that's my understanding, is that they lose a lot when you actually try to transmit through the energy grid. So the point is that you can have electricity generated through wind power, but that has to be consumed more or less within a certain geographic area. You can of course integrate it into the grid, but the loss is high, which again increases all of the existing issues. So in the very long term, maybe 40 years, 50 years, are starting to slowly run out of all the natural gas. So it might end up being coinciding the renewable. In the long term, it is a major threat. But in the short to medium term, 10, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, I do not see the emergence or renewables replacing hydrocarbons in any time soon in covering the energy needs for Europe, and that means it's hard to replace the reliance on natural gas, whatever it is. But I'm hoping I will be wrong. That's any questions anyway?
Yeah, so we have the last question from this side, and we will be thankful after this to our lecturer today. The question is that for the long time, Turkish-Russian cooperation in the Black Sea region was mostly concentrated on the energy as the core for this cooperation, despite all other issues existed in the Black Sea region. However, recently, the negotiations that took place and statements from two sides made this cooperation a little bit, let's say, less possible, especially for the future projects, and especially the last statement about that Turkey doesn't want to build the Turkish stream again, or something like connects with this, so that it can be the breakness in the South Stream over there. How do you think, is it just the influence of the Ukrainian crisis, or it is wider picture of the problems in the Russian-Turkish relations caused by the Armenian statements and others and others? I mean that energy as the core will not be aim or prevail over those political differences that two countries have.
Thanks a lot for the question. My point would be is that energy would continue to be the central sort of binding point for Turkey and Russia. So far, at least the way I can see it, is everything else is a sideshow. one clear example. Talk is cheap. Let me put it that way. What you really need to look at, not the stated preferences, as the economist says, but what the revealed preferences are. And the real preferences of Turkey with regards to Russia suggests that Turkey not only is content with a relatively high level of energy dependency, but is not really too worried about that even by commissioning a nuclear power station to Russia. That Turkish stream would be beneficial in terms of transit to Turkey, but it also again enhances, strengthens the ties between Russia and Turkey. Now, when you come up with the various other political situation, yes, Turkey said and continues to say that Turkey would never recognize the annexation of Crimea by Russia. That Erdogan said several things about how he's disappointed about the pronouncements about the Armenian genocide, proclamations, and whatnot. But when you look at the actual policies and changes, apart from paying, for example, lip service to Ukrainian territorial integrity in the situation of Crimean Tatars, in practice, Turkey doesn't do much. That would endanger its relations with Russia. One clear example to you, not about the Black Sea, but how Turkey sees its energy-centered relation with Russia, quite important. Erdogan and later on Davutoglu is very critical of pretty much all Western countries with regards to the situation in Syria since the war, civil war started there. A very harsh thing to say about for the rest of the country, of countries in the world, particularly the West. But you will not see everyone criticizing openly, publicly, in that harsh manner, Russia with regards to Syria and Assad regime. Our the chief supporters is Russia, together with Iran, with regards to the situation in Syria. And the Syrian situation is central to both Erdogan's foreign policy at the time and right now for Davutoglu's foreign policy. It is this central item, and takes most of the bandwidth with regards to foreign policy. And if Turkey is not willing to criticize, even on paper, Russia on such an important topic that is important for Turkey, I really doubt that Turkey would end up criticizing or endangering its role or relations with Russia, particularly based on energy, on other issues. One example I always gave when I talk about these issues is that, do you know where was then Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu were when the referendum took place in Crimea on March 18th? He was in the Caribbean. He was attending the CARICOM meeting declaring the Caribbean as a strategic place for Turkey. A very major crisis going on right in the Black Sea, right at the Turkish border, and a place where Turkey claims that it has strong cultural linguistic ties because of the Crimean Tatars. Our foreign minister was in the Caribbean. Now I can sense, March not very well in Crimea, perhaps better weather in the Caribbean, but still it also shows you what sort of an importance Turkey attached to the subject. So I really doubt that the centrality, the short answer is that I really doubt the centrality of the subject of energy would change between Russia and Turkey. There might be frictions, there might be problems down in the future, partly because I don't think it's very healthy for Turkey to heavily rely on Russia that much for energy now, for natural gas, but in the future for nuclear power plant as well. It is a problematic issue for Turkey, but I do not see the relations changing much because of the other developments. If it didn't get worse because of Syria, I don't think it would get worse because of some decision taken by Duma or this or that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Devlen, for the great lecture today. Thank you,
Thank you very
university,
much.
who were present. It was our last lecture in such a group. However, I would like to make the announcement that we will have the possibility to watch at YouTube the lecture of our Azerbaijan colleague on the 26th. I will send the information more for you. And if it is still the topic that you think we hasn't covered here at the university, send your propositions, and we still have June for the maybe final gathering of all of us. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thanks a